Hello, everyone. Hello, Dave. How are you?
Very well, Luke. Yourself?
Good, good. A little bit. Oh, I think my audio is coming in a bit hot. Apologies to everyone there. Good. A little bit of flailing. Sorry for the delayed start again out there to everyone.
Back to back false starts.
Yeah, look, there was the exact same technical problem that happened last week happened this week.
I assume you didn't do any testing then.
I did lots of testing. Many curse words were said in this household. And we've got a very special guest, someone that I've wanted to have on the show. We've both wanted to have on the show for a long time. Owen Johnston from Hop Products Australia. Owen, how are you going?
Oh, I'm really well. Thank you, guys. Nice to be here tonight. I really appreciate your invitation to come on the show. And I don't even know how many people we're talking to tonight, but great, if you're listening out there, it's nice to be with you.
And if you are out there and you have any questions for OJ, just drop them into the comments. We'll happily ask them. And I think, Dave, I speak for both of us when the reason what prompted us to get OJ on the show is seeing this Eclipse pack doing the rounds.
Yeah.
And
As
being
soon as I saw it, I was like, no, there's no like beer packs from anyone that I want ever. But this one, I was like, I gotta have it.
which is that's crazy, right? Like I look at event like the advent calendars and all that, and I think, oh, I don't need 25 individual beers in my life. But I saw this one.
Well, also it was so clear like immediately that it seemed to be like the next step in the evolution of the education around the single hop idea. Like 5, 6 years ago, you'd have the same beer brewed with different hops to sort of have the education, but like utilizing the same new focus hop in so many different ways. It's a way more like engaging as a nerd way of doing it.
So I guess before we go too far into celebrating this pack, OJ, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you actually do? Let's cross the first bridges first.
It's not about me, it's about these little hoppos here and this HPA thing, So my journey to here is basically through an academic path into brewing. I was a terrible home brewer. I lacked application and I lacked a scientific approach. I lacked the craziness that home brewers, bring to changing up what they make every time. I was like just interested in making a pretty steady beer and getting on it with my mates when I was at uni, and sort of pursued the uni studies through to a master's in brewing from the International Centre for Brewing and Distilling. Came back to Australia, an impoverished student, went back to working in pubs, and landed the job at Moo Brew back in 2005 when we built the first brewery for Moo Brew.
That was at Mona?
Where Mona is now, yeah. At the time, it was pre-Mona, so it was just the Marilla Estate Winery, and we added the brewery there. They already had a big hospitality presence there, and David Walsh, the minor celebrity owner of Mona, had yet to really sort of start to alter the landscape out there and stamp his authority on that little island.
The audience. How did you get from there then to selling hops?
So I can't remember. I think it was 9 years with Moo. Built their second brewery in 2010, and just needed to acknowledge that Moo Brew had I'd hard baked in a lot of decisions at Moo Brew, and we needed a change in leadership there, and so I walked my own plank, and and I actually sort of saw a lot of what was going on at HPA as fascinating, and this pivot to modern flavour hops and the proprietary suite of varieties and new exciting flavours, and I just thought, yeah, these this has got some real legs. This has got some real potential, and I'd love to make a difference in that space. So Tim Lord, managing director, and I had a good old chat about what the company's needs were, and we went from there. It's been great. It's been excellent.
How much did you know about hops going into? I mean, obviously brewing, you know, a reasonable amount, but I think one of the things I've learned being in and around this industry, there is so much we don't know about hops or anything really. So how much did you know coming into doing this job, and how much have you learned?
Look, I would say that how can I express this politely? What I know about knew about farming would not have filled a pinhead. So the connectivity between agriculture and the actual application of hops in the brew house and, you know, creating flavors in beer was just non-existent. And Moobrew at the time was the closest brewery to the hop farm here in Tasmania. And yet still the connectivity between agriculture and the processes behind breeding or selection or, you know, what's important to the farmer as a critical piece of the infrastructure behind delivering great beer, it was just non-existent, just a complete and utter unknown. Not mythical, not mysterious, just like, I need these hops to turn up and they need to do what they say on the box, and I'll take care of the rest, thanks. And, you know, so for me, coming into, yes, on the sales side of an agricultural business, still very steep learning curve about what's in the engine room of a farming company, and you know, we're innovative in our own very slow moving way. We're a very innovative company. We resource our own R&D programs and breeding programs, a lot like a brewing industry actually. Like there's every major brewery used to have a you know, fully fledged R&D division, and they just don't exist anymore with cost cutting and I don't know, maybe the accountants out there think that there's nothing left to discover about beer. HPA remains committed to, you know, industry linkage grants with tertiary institutions. You know, we've got multiple PhD students through in the 6 or 7 years I've been here at HPA, multiple PhD students through original research, peer-reviewed papers, and of course the amazing outcomes from the breeding program itself in commercializations of, you know, Vic and Enigma and Ella and now Eclipse. Yeah, it's a thriving little busy modern agricultural company. It's really fascinating.
How did you start the R&D phase of a new variety? Like, I was trying to just think about how it will be approached, and I came up with nothing. So what's the first direction?
I think at the heart of it is to understand as much about your breeding population as you can. So you can start to know, you know, in very simplistic terms, I guess that's how I do my best work. You know, this one's got a good yield, but this one's got, you know, nice flavors, high alpha. Take a parameter, and you know, it's classic plant breeding. So you're looking just across, you know, male and female, and you know, throw as many cultivars or as many seedlings as possible, and then screen them for what those outcomes were that you were targeting. So traditional plant breeding techniques, you know, collect male pollen, bag up a female flower, shake and bake, and collect the seeds later on and deploy them in little grow tubes, like you might grow a seedling in, you know, a tomato seedling in your hothouse before putting it out in the garden bed. I do a great disservice to the amount of effort and intellect that goes into that process, but those who know me from that side of the business will understand.
Those PhD students all will use the term shake and bake, didn't they?
Yeah. What's the title of your PhD? How to shake and bake a tomato plant, you know?
Do you have like an end goal in mind, and then you try and work your way towards that with what you observe, or do you take the observations and like see where that's going to lead you?
Yeah, look, we do target outcomes, but if I said that we were good enough to target, you know, the next flavor, exactly the next flavor profile, if I said to Dr. Simon Whittaker, plant breeder, mate, I want you to deliver me
Eclipse.
Give me Eclipse.
Yeah.
Give me a hop that's reminiscent of strawberries and cream. You know, those old lollies that you used to get. You know, he'd be like, oh, okay, give me 10 years. You know, give me 15 years maybe. But if it's more like I don't want to see any new cultivar that's below a certain yield threshold. Immediately, that's a line in the sand that we can work with, and that starts to inform selections of parent material and all this sort of thing. So, you know, we have our limits, and there's no genetic engineering, so to speak. So we, with traditional methodology, it comes down to understanding your collection and asking it the right questions, and of course your screening methods. And you know, I think that's where our team has just done an exceptional job.
So Sam Smalley in the chat there has just said, so he's had the Eclipse pack, and his standouts were Mountain Culture, Mr. Banks, and Hop Nation, which a bit of a trend there. I think they were the 3 out of the 4 in the hazy spectrum.
I think the Hop Nation I'm having now is the pretty clean West Coast.
Oh, is it clean?
Yeah,
I haven't had that one.
Classic West Coast, delightful bloody.
It's really,
that's
really
a fantastic,
good.
yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm yet to open that one. I've got the Sunday Road Dark Lager.
Yeah, also a delicious beer. I really appreciate the Hop Nation IPA. It might have had a couple of other hops layered in for some depth, but you know, I just feel like that Eclipse really leading the profile. And let's say these beers and the range of beers in this pack was very deliberate, and to see each of those particular styles. I think we only really doubled up on the NEPA with Mountain Culture and Deeds, but there's pretty much almost one of everything else in there. So Hop Nation bloody just flew the IPA flag bang on. Well done.
And I think that's, you know, when you're talking about sort of breeding and getting the flavour profiles, and you know, sort of the end point for the consumer is so far from that, even for the brewers so far from that. So I guess one of the things I'm kind of curious about is how you came up with the idea to connect the hop in that way to the consumer of doing it in a pack with different things, and then how did you approach, or how did you choose what brewers and what styles?
For sure. First question first. So we had in our minds to put on a launch party, a bit of a classic, you know, come and get on the fizz with us to celebrate naming the name day of a new hop. But the spin-off there was that we were going to ask a dozen breweries, let's say, to brew a beer for us, and we'll put it on tap at the IBA conference in Brizzy. And we'll just have a good old-fashioned shindig, and people will be able to see it that way. Very targeted to the brewing audience, you know, to our customers, you know, but limited. Only those people in the room are going to see it. Only those people who come to the conference are going to see it. And this is back pre-COVID, of course, and it all turned to custard very shortly thereafter. So the idea lived on, and we span it off into like, this is worth pursuing. How do we get these beers? This is worth pursuing. How do we get these beers out to these brewers now in this COVID time? And so, you know, coming from the brewery background, so to speak, and having sold a few cartons of beer in my time, it's like we can actually do this. There are people. They're not our mechanisms. There are mechanisms. There are machines out there like the Beer Cartel Partnership, that's what they do, right? They pick and pack and they shift it and swift it out to customers every day. And, you know, God bless them. And we thought, yep. We can make some sensible partnerships here, and we can go and partner breweries can make this beer. It was a, you know, not to go deep into it, but it was commercial between the brewery and Beer Cartel, and it was commercial between us and Beer Cartel, and I think it worked really, really well. The added benefit, of course, once it started to snowball like this, I said, well, these guys aren't just going to make a batch of beer that's suitable for what we want to achieve sending out to our customers. You know, we only need 150 or 200 cartons or something. Like they're going to brew a whole tank. So that's heaps. Why aren't we bringing it to the public? Like let's have a really big party on this, and let's take a step that we haven't taken before. And no one, as far as I'm concerned, in the world as a hop initiative has taken it out to a public launch and tried to put a new hop right in the lounge rooms of beer nerds all over the country. You know, I kind of laugh. I kind of laugh tongue in cheek. I laugh at the audacity of it, even though we've sort of done it. It's like, I hope people really enjoyed it. And Dave, your response, that is a beer pack I have to have. I never expected that sort of stuff. That sort of reaction is fantastic.
I think it's also like people that have been around the industry like as long as us. We know there's going to be beers out there with this new hop that like probably hits lots of areas that we're going to see through the pack, but we're too busy and we like drink too much other stuff to seek out all the beers to try and put that sort of like education framework together. So, yeah. And it's like, it's an idea that still appeals to us. So like seeing that was like, there's no way I'm not getting that.
Yeah. And it is like, you know, even in the brewery, like if you're absolutely right, as a booze consumer, it's a fantastic time to be alive in Australia, and so much choice, but it does sort of feed back in, like, as you say, as a consumer, you don't really spend the effort going to a single fridge and being able to pick out a dozen single hop variants of a thing. You know, it just doesn't happen. And it also doesn't happen for brewers in breweries. Like, you head down, bum up making the beers you make, and often you do love them, and that's what you tend to go to on a Friday, you know. And so I really feel like putting this pack together and like landing it in their staff room and saying, this is a great opportunity for you and your staff, and just get that mind map, just get that sensory landscape of this hop performing in heaps of different settings with different yeast strains and different dry hopping technique, different hop application points for different purposes. And snap, you've got your you've got your mindscape. And those creative types in breweries, much more creative than I ever was, you know, are going to be thinking, yeah, I can see this going in here, or this tells me a beer style this. And, you know, and then for me, putting the old sales hat back on, that's where you really get that cut through, and people start to smell it and taste it a few times, and they go, next time they're thinking of an NPD, they go, yeah, I know how to get there. I know how to get that sweet, sweet mandarin.
Let me ask you a quick question first, sorry.
Yeah.
Did the beers that you envision change when you decided to package it for the public rather than just have it on tap for the conference?
Not especially. And I would say that with a bit of tongue in cheek, because we hadn't progressed all that far.
Right.
So we had the concept, we had, you know, like we just had a very narrow HPA centric opinion of who and what we were going to put in the pack. We started to branch out with Beer Cartel, as you know, and they're a bit more connected to, you know, who's hot and who's not. And you know, we really benefited from some of their insights. And they said to us, you know, play to people's strengths. Like, you're asking a lot of them, and I very much acknowledge this. We're asking 12 brewers to make one-off beers with a single hop in a diversity of settings. Like, you know, that's why we went to Moo Brew and said, execute that fabulous Moo Dark, that American brown ale. Spin it up if you like, do whatever you want, but play to that strength. You know, that's a real opportunity for us to put a dark ale in the pack from high quality, trusted, consistent output. You know, bang, tick all those boxes, and that's a delicious beer.
Sorry, I'm been muting myself. It looks like my audio is going a little bit funny. Apologies to anyone out there that can hear it. Someone's just commented that they didn't really think the hop came across that well in the dark beer. But I'm drinking the Sunday Road, and I'm finding that that mandarin is really accenting that dark malt. And I've kind of got when I used to homebrew, I brewed a Baltic Porter with vanilla and mandarin. And it was probably the best beer I'd ever brewed. It was so good. And
fantastic.
And this kind of recalls that kind of mandarin flavor. And I did this. I never read marketing material. I really don't care about marketing material. And I messaged Dave after having, I think, 3 or 4 of these beers, and I said, "Oh, I'm really getting a lot of mandarin from this hop." And Dave's like, "Are you kidding?"
Yeah. You're just eating what they are feeding you. Think independently. Come on, mate.
Yeah.
Don't believe the spin.
And then I think Brendan from Three Ravens tweeted a photo at me of when you open the pack, the first thing you see is a mandarin. I just straight up just chucked that away.
Subliminal though, it got in there somewhere.
It probably was, but yeah, there was that real memory of me going, oh, this reminds me, and even the kind of the IPAs reminded me of that porter that I brewed way back in the day. And
look, I actually like, on a sensible note about how we've brought this to market and the flavour descriptors we've chosen. We haven't chosen a plethora of descriptors. We aren't trying to be everything, including Christmas cake. You know, we are pretty narrow, and I hope that that mandarin is the leading flavour, and it is what I've seen in far and away. The most times has been that mandarin as that primary descriptor. Now, there's a caveat on that, of course, and depending on what you couple it with, including dark malts, to that point raised earlier. Also, yeast strain, of course, makes a huge difference. You'll get different expressions. I mean, I'm not going to stand here and tell you black and white that you only get mandarin out of this thing. We all know that's just not how it works. But the lead descriptor for me in most settings has been mandarin, and just on the darks, the two dark beers, one lager and one ale in this pack. I thought both of them did bring sufficient mandarin to be noted. Obviously, they're pushing uphill a bit more than in the West Coast IPA. That's well acknowledged. But in terms of Moo's Dark, just that beautiful hop flavour on the palate. There was absolutely no doubt in my mind that hop had made a really positive contribution in that setting, and that is exactly what I needed. That's all I need. That is it. Like, it doesn't have to be the hero. It has to make a delicious beer and work in a combination that other brewers and other beer nerds are just going to go, like, I see the vision in this beer. It's been executed well. And those flavours are all delicious together, and away you go.
It's not. I mean, just the mandarin's obviously front and center, but in this West Coast IPA, it like kicks off with this citrus candy sort of little rounded flavour. It's because it's quite bitter and quite firm, but just like swirls around this little smooth citrus sweetness before it just really zings off into its bitterness. It's great.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to ask too much more of that beer. That was my pick of the whole pack, to be honest.
I've still got that one on to open. I'm also excited to try the Newstead Wit. Speaking of mandarin, and then seeing a wit beer pop up in the pack, and I mean, seeing a wit beer pop up in 2020 is rare enough as it is. And
let alone a single hop wit beer,
yeah, and particularly a new world hop. If someone was going to do it now, they'd probably do it as traditionally as they can to kind of make a point.
Yeah.
So did you, when you approached the breweries, did you say, we'd really love you to do this? Or you said, like, how did that work?
In terms of trying to get the brewers to play to their strengths and sort of fit in this rainbow of beers we were trying to put together. Yeah, look, we never dictated. We never dictated, but we described what we were trying to achieve in exactly how I'm describing it to you. Like, I've come to you because I trust you and you make fantastic beers, and I reckon you can have a crack at a one-off beer for this pack. It's going to get a bit of publicity, and we want you to play to your strengths, or go into your wheelhouse there. And it doesn't have to be just one style. It's up to them to choose. And then we just sort of basically said to them, first in, best dressed. If you get in first and you say IPA, then good on you, go for it. And most people really embrace that, not dictating to them, just like what we're trying to achieve, that bit of vision, and then they're on board.
So this whole,
I'm not sure that Justin at Deeds knows how to make anything else except Meepers, but he's going to hate me for that.
Yeah, he did a barrel aged Pilsner too recently, wasn't it? I'd trying
to break the shackles, trying to get out.
And I did admittedly enjoy the Blaster Pilsner that this was, and that kind of added a new element. That there is a little bit of grassiness in there, but again, that kind of citrusness works.
Before, yeah.
You had that before, Dave? What do you think?
As for the hop expression, I really enjoyed it. It was probably a bit hoppier and more bitter than I was expecting, but I mean, it's a hop focused hoppy.
Yeah, I totally agree,
Yeah.
and I think the Pilsner style gets interpreted as pretty firm nowadays, as a point of difference to a Euro lager or mainstream. So good on them for that. I was lucky enough to have 4 or 5 of those actually last night, and you know how your perception of bitterness changes through the night on bitter beers, and I reckon on the second can onwards, it was perfectly in balance because your palate shifts a fraction, and those really grippy bits, which I find the moorish elements that make me want to pick the can up again. That moorishness stayed, but the roughness of the firm bitterness came away, and it's just it was all hop profile after that for me. Delicious.
So this hop had a number. It was at HPA016 for.
That's right.
And that was being trialled. Am I right in saying it was a couple of years, kind of around
More than a couple
the
of
place?
years. 2012 was the first time it got featured in a commercial beer in Bridge Road's Mick Keller collaboration, Dark Harvest. So it was a wet hop in that beer, which made a bit of a splash at the time anyway, if people were alive back in 2012. And
I mean, because that is if I think of that beer, I think orange citrus hop flavor. So
Yep. Yeah, it was good, and then it was in the leading sort of cohort of experimental hops, and so like that means 100 kilos or less for many years. One of maybe 5 or 6. So spread pretty thinly, but all the while we're building up sensory, we're building up proof of concept and that it works in beer. And even when flights of beer would turn up and they'd be pretty same, it was always like this beer, this hop would always come out on the highest preference. It's like, even just in a tea room tasting of non-beer drinkers or non-beer aficionados, it was like, which one did you like the most? And it was always the 016 beer. So it's just like, this is undeniable. This is starting to become a real pattern. What are we going to do about it?
How many points of data do you need to pull the trigger on that sort of thing?
I wish that was a simple answer. I wish it was like, we need 99 successful trials and then the 100th will pull the trigger on it. But it just doesn't work like that. We actually had another hop in front of it, 035, which was a more floral and spicy orientated, like a New World lager, more New World lager orientated hop. But it was harder to use. It was more subtle. It wasn't like a 10 out of 10 impact in beer. It wasn't a big impact hop. It was all the things that we pinned on it when it didn't really get the commercial traction that it needed to go from a ton to 20 tons. So we axed it and moved on to 016. But I can give you one light bulb moment where Tim Lord and I were drinking Ash Hazel's Colonial IPA Pioneer, who just loaded this little trial beer up with a truckload of 016 at the time, and Tim and I were just looking over the kitchen bench in the office and just said, wow, this is actually world class. This is a fantastic beer. And it was that one last proof, that one last thing. It's just like, I am convinced that this hop is going to stand up out in the real world. Let's find the market opportunity for it. So then it's a matter of timing. On farm, can we find acreage to deploy? And what are we talking about at the moment? Are we still just chasing the Galaxy Dragon as far as we can, or what? And so we have to be well and truly aware of what we're capable of, but B, something it's a bit harder to pin down is, what do we want to be? Like, do we want to be a one-trick Galaxy pony? Do we want to ride that pony, or are we going to actually try and present some choice and diversity to brewers to make great beers? And so we don't want to be a one-trick pony. We do want to be able to bring authentic Aussie, a suite of differentiated Aussie flavors, they don't all have to taste like Galaxy, and I don't think this one does. I think the beautiful thing about this is that, yep, it's down the fruit forward, sort of citrus end, but there's a big difference between passion fruit and mandarin, and the way these hops work in beers sets them apart.
When you have to find acreage to deploy them, does that always mean scaling back something else, or do you have enough room to expand the field?
We've been really lucky, or at least very successful in lobbying the shareholders to fund continued expansion. Since about 2014, we've been bolting on new acreage and sort of rejuvenating some of the key infrastructure out on farm. And so in that way, we've actually not been really robbing from other hops. Some hops were axed, but they're more on performance basis. They're not a matter of preference. You know, if a hop's not selling, you know, Helga never got above about 10 tons, and it had many years to, you know, find its feet and do its wild thing, and it just didn't. So the writing's on the wall, and you know, we'll flip paddocks from one that gets deprioritized, but really we haven't. You know, we haven't had a situation where we've needed to really make really hard decisions. Like, what would you do with Vic Secret and Ella? You know, they're pretty important hops for us, and it'll be very hard to unwind those hops without really strong signals from the market.
Do those signals from the market, I mean, I'm sure it does because you're running a business, but like, how tough is it to discontinue a hop that you've put so much time and effort into?
Yeah, it's really tough, and it's not as tough for me as it is for some of our customers who have core product out there on the shelf with these hops in them, and it's like, you're killing me, mate. What am I going to do without my Helga? You know, it's like, then we go to work. That's when we go to work. You know, and I like to go deep with customers who've got problems and hop-related problems, and you know, understand the vision for the beer, understand what's at play, how their flavors are achieved, what their technology is like in their brew house, and help make suggestions, help technically try and get them a satisfactory outcome, you know. And it pretty much works. It's, you know, it's not painless, but it's pretty reliable.
So when a hop is discontinued, is that it? Like, is there no, you know, do you keep some rhizomes somewhere of Helga?
Yeah. I talk about things getting killed, but they get killed into the cold store, you know. So the things that we know a lot about, we tend not to let go. Like I said at the very top, you know, it's about understanding your collection and understanding parental inputs and things like this. And once you know a lot about a hop, that's a really powerful thing. It's not quite the same as in the old days where the cultivars that we would commercialise were also, so to speak, fertile. So you could then reintroduce them into breeding. All of our proprietaries are triploids, meaning that they don't produce viable seed. So you know, they're an outcome. That's it. There's no future for that variety after commercialisation and deployment. It can't go back into the breeding collection. But we don't tend to let things that we've invested really heavily in go. And unfortunately for the hobby farmers out there, like there's no chance that we're going to release proprietary material out to smaller growers and hobbyists and backyarders. It's just not something that we entertain.
Why?
We invested a lot of money in that. We might need it. We might need it later, so you can't have it.
Okay.
It's mine, and I'm not sharing.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Am I right in thinking Summer was the same as well? That's been discontinued? Yep.
Helga and Summer were our sort of highest profile, if you like, fatalities in the modernisation of the lineup. When the initial push to move away from alpha hops began, we had you have to stick your toe in the water, don't you? And we started with Helga, Summer, and Galaxy, and you know, Galaxy continues on, of course. But you know, I think we learned a lot along the way about what it was we were trying to achieve, and really significantly differentiated flavors is what it boils down to. And Helga was definitely German inspired, you know, summer started out as Southern SARS. You know, it's a substitute hop with a if what's the market opportunity there? If the SARS crop falls over, we're going to sell some. Like, anyway, so they didn't work, and I'm glad they didn't, because it allowed us to go back to the breeding program and really pull out some aces. You know, some hops that have really hit the modern times and fit modern style, and you know, we couldn't have got more fortunate with this pivot of beer style, or this innovation in beer style around biotransformation. You know, it turns out that much like Galaxy, Eclipse really performs in the biotransformational space, as evidenced by deeds and mountain culture in this pack. You know, like this is a beautiful thing about this pack. Like traditional styles, some with different yeast strains like Saison, some focused on biotransformational performance, some set in a dark malt base. Beautiful. Let's have all of them.
I guess the success of Galaxy is kind of linked forever with the success of Stone and Wood, in most people's minds, at least. Maybe, yeah. I think all the consumers' minds. How, like, if no one worked out how to use Galaxy, because they were quite early on in using that correctly. They really kind of hit that sweet spot, which is amazing marketing for that hop. I guess, is that what it takes for some hops to be successful?
Do you need, like, for a hop to be successful, do you need a champion out there making something that really shakes up the landscape?
I mean, yeah. Does it help?
I'll take it. Yeah. I'll take it every time. Yes. Not to be flippant about it. It's an incredible journey that Galaxy and Stone and Wood Pacifico have been on together, and there's been some really fascinating articles published. Around, God, I can't even remember which birthday it was, 10-year anniversary or something like that recently. That I just time is flying by, so I guess. I guess if I bring it back to thinking about this mix pack, we've got brewers in there who are, like Justin at Deeds, right? I'd say he's right on the tip of that hazy craze, and DJ up at Mountain Culture is just making some stonking beers. You know, these guys are in their own way. Now they might not end up with the volumes or the financial success of Stone and Wood, but in their own way, they are lighthouse breweries. They are leading the way. They're showing how these things can be used. And as I've said, I'm really grateful for him to get on board and allocate his time and resource to help us. And I fully believe that these guys will be as important to Eclipse as Stone and Wood is to Galaxy. And I say that not from any kind of naivety. I just think I just have a different metric of success, and it doesn't mean litres of beer out the door. It means that light shining out of this beer that says this is how it can go, and this is fabulous.
What's the second most prominent Galaxy focused beer?
Cloudcatcher?
It's not a question I get asked a lot. I don't think that's very fair.
It's a testament to the just how synonymous it almost is.
Yeah, look, it is, and it's I don't know. I should probably cite a beer that used to come out of Thunder Road, but very very similar name with a very similar hop, and that'd be just too ironic, wouldn't it? So, no, look, I guess I'm really spoiled in that sense. I just really I've seen Galaxy in so many settings, in so many hop blends, in so many just great beers. It's really I'm a little overwhelmed by the number of Galaxy beers I've seen, and in some ways, I'm quite thankful that Stone and Wood Pacifico for me is still a singularity. It's still a unique thing out there for me.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it is stunning.
There's still that moment of having it fresh in and around Byron, and you're like, oh, right, it's still really good.
Well,
this is why this beer exists.
Yeah.
I mean, we went to Stone Day that time, and there's however many beers on tap they had that we'd never seen before, and then it's just like, Pacifico, please. You have to.
Yep. Win in Byron, do what they do in Byron.
We've got a couple of questions from the chat. One I'm going to save till the end, but one from Sam. He wants to know what were some of the beers that featured Helga back in the day that he might be familiar with. This is going to put your mind to work.
Too. God, I think we killed that in 2014.
Matilda Bay Helga. Big Helga was the big one.
Was that just not related?
That's just marketing spin, that is. I'll tell you what one springs to mind. It's probably a local slant and probably never had the range. Bogues did a celebrity, endorsed beer with Matt Moran, a red and a white, which was supposed to sit on fine dining tables whilst also dumbing down the beer consumer to the two colours of a wine drinker.
I ripped on that on social media quite solidly. Yeah.
Good man. We're going to get along fine. Yeah. But I had to bite my tongue because I was selling them Helga for the white. For the white. So, sorry about that, everyone.
I think maybe 2014, there were sort of single hop beers, but the kind of the focus on the hop probably wasn't nowhere near as strong as it is now, where, if you're going to have a passing relationship to a beer, you kind of, Citra and you probably know Mosaic and Galaxy, right?
Mm.
The other question was, it's not a question, it's a comment, sorry. The Bridge Road Need IPA was great. Galaxy notably prominent in that. Yep. That's from Daniel, who's also said he's loved the Hop Nation one as well in this pack.
Fabulous. Yeah, good on you. Thanks for supporting the pack. I guess part of our plan for Eclipse, just talking about sort of that, that emerging awareness that people have generally got. Like if you're into your beers, you're starting to become familiar with hop names, and if someone says, "Oh, try this beer, it's got Galaxy in it," yeah, okay. First, your shortcut is that means Stonewall Pacific like, but then you've probably seen a few Galaxy beers, and you're not fooled that is the only way Galaxy looks. But hopefully you're starting to get that like knowledge bank that says, "Yeah, I'll probably like this. I like Galaxy beers." I reckon we'll have achieved something if we can. And it's not about patting the ego of HPA. It's actually about like bringing the consumer further and further away from the mainstream offering of the past, which you could throw a blanket over. And part of our release strategy with Eclipse was about making sure we adequately supported the homebrew channel and had stock prioritised and delivered and available in homebrew shops around Australia. We partnered with Cooper's DIY and one of the homebrew distributor partners, to put recipes together, get included in recipe packs of the month, and all this sort of activity in that homebrew space to really try and acknowledge and drive that the culture of beer is changing, and that I think it's a really powerful thing. And I'm not going to go so far as to say it's a corporate social responsibility to meaningfully contribute to beer culture, but bloody hell, we're in this for the right reasons, and sociability and education, and we wrap all that up and do what we can as a humble farming entity. And this is pretty cool.
I think it's really cool, and putting my sort of Good Beer Week hat on, we want more homebrewing content. We want to, you want to foster that, because, if you meet someone, if you go around to your mate's house and he's just, cracked a keg of homebrew with a new hop, I'm far more excited than probably going to a light tap room and trying it.
Yeah. And the opportunity to, geek out with your mate over a new hop or in a new beer that they've made. Like that's just, I don't know, going to sound like a bit of a tragic, but I reckon that stuff's excellent. I'd talk about beer all day, whether I'm at work or not. So.
I don't think any of us got in it for the money. It's the love of the beer.
Yeah.
I've got the Moo Brew going on at the moment.
So do I.
It's really nice.
It's really good. It's got a little tinge of like that like English dark sort of like a savory note, but then that sort of like little mandarin sweetness just kicks that out too. It's like, that's a really interesting little beer.
Yeah, and just let it sit and roll off the palate and pick up that hop slick, that hop oil and the hop flavors through the palate. And I think the integration and context of that hop addition is just spot on.
And that's the interesting thing of doing it this way. You know, if you released Eclipse now just as a release, we're probably going to see 30 NEPAs, a couple of West Coasts, and maybe someone might use it in a lager. But you know, trying it in this context and going, oh right, here's how that hop finds a place in this beer, which is, you know, for someone that's probably cynical about knowing what hops are in what beer, because a lot of it depends to the brewer and what they do with it. This kind of, it's a really interesting context for me as well.
Yeah, fabulous. And like, it's just so, I don't know, gratifying, reassuring, you know, verifying that it's of interest to other people, because I was just stoked to run through the pack myself. So, you know, it would be very, very easy to fall into a trap with a new hop to go out there and put a dozen NEPAs in a pack and do exactly the same thing, because or IPAs or whatever. But you know, because you look at the States, you know, the top 5 styles by volume in craft out of the States, it's bloody 4 IPAs and American pale. You know, it's, you know, I'm not going to say it's boring, because it's not, but I think diversity in this way is something that we've really valued, and I would like to think that this is a little bit of a bit of a springboard for Aussie brewers to keep championing that diversity of styles presented out there. And, you know, if I thought this hop was only good in NEPAs or something silly, then we would have done that. But I don't. I think this hop is an all-rounder, and it's fit for purpose in different contexts. And that beer and of course the lager, the dark lager, are fantastic examples of how a hop doesn't have to be the hero. It has to be fit for purpose and make a really meaningful contribution. You know, in fact, there are beer styles that exist that don't hero the hop at all. I mean, I'm not sure why, but, you know, for me, it was really important, especially the role of the wit and the Imperial Saison in there as well. You know, I mean, that beer, basically, I still don't know what to make of that beer. Fascinating beer and an excellent beer.
I can't wait to have it. Yeah.
I don't think I've tried that one, or I don't recall it. What one's that one? Who made that one?
It's the India Saison, you know, single hop Eclipse India Saison from New England. And,
yep. I did have that. That was lovely.
Oh yeah, big and estery, and that again, like, and you know, I'm only me. I'm not an expert, and I say that beer was really challenging for me, and I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the challenge, because I was like, what is that? Is that ester? Is that hop? What's making that contribution? Geez, this beer's good. Oh, I can't understand it. You know, this beer's shit. I don't understand it. Hang on. No, that's my problem, not the beer's problem. Is that an ester or is that a hop? Ah, shit. I better have another one.
When you not sure what's contributing to the flavor profile.
It was so good. Fantastic. And, you know, like, I pride myself on understanding a brewer's purpose most of the time. Like, if I drink a beer and I'm like, I know what he's trying to achieve, you know, I've got a pretty good understanding of style and all this other stuff. So, and that one really baked me and challenged me. And I thought, what a fabulous contribution to this pack. If that isn't exactly what we asked for in presenting a range of flavors, like, I don't know what is.
Just going back to your previous point, if you packaged up 10 NEPAs and 2 West Coast IPAs in a pack, first of all, I'm not buying it. Secondly, though, a brewery that doesn't have that as their strength isn't thinking about that hop as like a usable resource.
No, that's right. That's right. So, you know, there are breweries out there, and bless them, there's bloody like 700 of them out there at the moment. And they want to make English styles, and they want to make, you know, estery styles, and they want to make yeast-driven styles, and they want to make drinkable styles. You know, you don't have to have this bloody hop soup coming at you all the time. And you know, I think people who know me know that I don't advocate for more hop equals better beer. I just don't think that's the right way to go about it. Choice and diversity in all things, you know, choose your own adventure.
I think there's an interesting sort of thing at play here as well, where a lot of brewers will tell you their tap room their biggest seller at the tap room is their lager or their pale or equivalent, versus the stuff they're putting out into the market that's getting all the social media love, which will be a hazy, a double hazy. The volumes might be probably similar, but there's still two segments of the market that are interested in beer for different reasons. And thinking about, say, the Blaster one, if someone finds a taproom style that works with this hop, then that is so much better than seeing it dotted around in Neepers, for me at least. Anyway,
that's exactly right. And like hero beers and showboating beers that are great for your reputation but don't really pay the bills. We all understand this industry enough to know that it is about repeat purchases. It's about being able to go down the pub and have 2 pints, not just one of something that you can't go back and have a second pint of. And I've always advocated that the beer is the social lubrication, that it is about sociability, and drinkability is a big part of that. And I do say that respectfully about drinking too much, because I think we're all at risk of that. But I think your point about the taproom success versus what's out in the market is very valid, and I would say that I fit that description. I don't always relax with a hop hero in my hand. Sometimes I relax with and I love this beer, with a Cooper's Pale. Bloody delicious. Okay, not exactly what I would call a showcase for interesting and diverse hop flavour, but a great beer to relax with anyway. So horses for courses, and always with a really respectful attitude to what's successful where and fit for purpose. Great. I hope this hop can find a really diverse home out there in Australian beers, and I look forward to, when I can get back on the road a bit more, I look forward to wandering into people's tap rooms to say good day, and looking up on the menu boards like we do, and we see Galaxy named up on menu boards all over the world. I look forward to seeing Eclipse named up on menu boards in tap rooms all over the world, because I think it will.
Thinking of that, that the way that Australian hops are viewed overseas. Actually, a story I wrote for Good Beer Hunting a couple of years ago now, which talked about Enigma and Ella, and I think Galaxy. Apparently someone emailed Good Beer Hunting recently and said, I read that story and bought a lot of those hops based on the descriptions in that story, which is kind of
I'll send you a Christmas card.
Yeah, I'm doing your job for you now.
Appreciate it.
I'm just happy people are reading articles 2 years after the fact as well. But I guess at this point and in this current climate, how much is Eclipse making it internationally? Has any gone overseas yet, and is it popping up yet?
Yeah, it's a great question. And again, coming off comments earlier about the opportunity and the land base and the resource that we've got. We have to be pretty mindful of fulfilling the promises that we make, and it's commercially available only in Australia at the moment from the March 2020 harvest. We have sampled it out into our key distributor partners in Europe and the US. But that means that there are entire marketplaces, like big marketplaces, Japan, Brazil, Vietnam, Korea, that have not seen this hop yet. We are going to bring substantially more quantity to the market out of 2021. We're on a really rapid trajectory to come out the fourth harvest in 2024 at about 160 tonnes on the plan. And now if we really are roaring, then we start to have that conversation about perhaps a different hop gets deprioritised as we see where this hop can go. But tough questions, but
to give context, 160 tonne, where does that put it, say, at Galaxy or Enigma?
So that'll put it within 3 years. That'll put it as our number 3 hop by volume. So no other hops enjoyed this level of support from the get-go, including Galaxy. I'd say that we were much more responsive to Galaxy, demand-led. This is a much more sort of a strategic approach to the fact that we think the demand's there, and we better do the right thing and back this. And try and avoid that disappointment out there. I think we were at risk of having quite a lot of disappointment about Galaxy's short supply for a long time. we've turned that around. For reference, I think Galaxy this year was something like 850 tons. So, and it's, I mean, don't get me wrong, that's a lot of hop, but you consider Citra at 8,000 tons, that's a big hop. That's a lot of hop. Can Galaxy be as big as Citra? Now that's a question we need to get into.
And what do you think about that?
Absolutely, no doubt at all. We just need to buy all of the Ovens Valley and all of the Buffalo Valley and plant hops on it. We need to fill all of these valleys with hops. We can do it.
So Vic's Secret is 2?
Big Secret's number 2,
yep.
sitting at about 250 tons in rough numbers.
I guess speaking of the immediate future, I was looking at Ryfields Hop's Instagram today. For people that sort of aren't aware, they're quite a small new hop farm in New South Wales, and they lost everything to the bushfires, pretty much everything, and they're sort of regenerating at the moment, and their drought's kind of broken. They look like they've got a lot of really good quality growth happening at the moment. Are you seeing something similar?
Yeah, I guess there's a couple of comments I'd like to make about that, and firstly, when we saw some of the shocking pictures of drought and bushfire with the Ryfield guys, it's really moving. You can really understand the impact that has on a fellow farmer. The threat of climate change is real for us. Whether it's more frequent weather extremes like hailstorms. We had a hailstorm in 2016. Persistent, hottest year on record kind of commentary, the inversion of rain patterns, to drier spells and now wetter periods, and the whole, the whole climate piece is a bit of a moving feast, and it is a threat to us. And we continue to select varieties in our own microclimate, so we have a level of risk mitigation there. We are across 3 geographies, 3 growing regions. There's a little bit of protection from microclimatic weather conditions like a hailstorm that hit one end of the farm and did not hit the other end of the farm. So we try and grow hops on multiple sites for that reason. So there's a bunch of stuff in the climate piece that's really important to us. We don't buy any land that hasn't got adequate water rights or supply in that sense. It's just not possible. As Ryfield's experience shows us, you've got to sort that out. They're thirsty plants.
Dan's mentioned that he donated to Helga Hop. What do we want to understand about Helga Hop?
That's the Ryfield. I think it's over now, but that was I think you could buy a certain amount of hops. I think I donated after chatting to them.
It was like a pre-commitment, or to help them get back on their feet. And I haven't. I've got to be honest. I haven't kept up with their recovery, but all the best to them.
It's looking really good. As I said, I was looking through their social media today, and they were in the story that I wrote sort of at the start of the year. I think I chatted to you as well, Owen, about that story, and they were in a pretty rough spot. So it's cool to see them with good growth again. You got a couple more comments from the chat there, Dave?
What do we got here? Dan really liked the Two Birds name for their Eclipse beer. He thought that one.
It's very Two Birds is the pun.
That inspired a whole playlist on Spotify. That name of that beer. So,
was it Total Eclipse of the Hop? Was the yep.
All right, let's go with a throwback question from Sam Smalley about half an hour ago. Owen, what's your favorite New School International hop and classic Noble hop?
Well, great question. I guess if I could answer the second bit first, I think my favorite Noble is Spalter. And now I am extremely partial to SARS, authentic Czech SARS used in fantastic beers over in Europe. it's as close as I come to having a religious moment, I think, when I'm over there drinking their beers in place, in the place. But Spalt took me on a long journey with the Mubaru Pills, and I am deeply emotionally wedded to that beer, that beer and that hop.
And international, how much can you say, given a lot of these are your competitors in the marketplace?
No, look, I think you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't say you liked international hops. I mean, and maybe not a new hop, but I still think that when Centennial is up and about and you get a beautiful expression of that, whatever that crop year is, if it's come in really well, that is a fascinating hop. There are famous examples. I mean, Bell's Two Hearted Ale is 100% Centennial.
I remember back in the day when
how do you do that?
Brewdog launched a single hop IPA series that featured Galaxy.
Ripper.
The Centennial was a standout of that one too. That was a killer.
Yep. It's there's quite a lot of hops coming out now, and so we were quite concerned about Eclipse getting enough cut through with all sorts of varieties coming out from the breeding programs around the world. I still haven't seen a lot of Talus. I've seen more of Sabro. Sabro's got a bit of a hole in it for me because I don't really get the coconut thing very often.
I'm shaking my head at Sabro. I've had a couple of beers that I enjoyed that have it as an element, and Daniel in the comments mentioned the Bridge Road one with Galaxy also had Sabro, which kind of dominated it. And that beer, gorgeously, so well put together, and I think Mr. Banks did a Sabro one. Again, so well put together, but just that little bit of coconut. And I love coconut, but it just doesn't quite do it for me. Yeah,
right. I mean, most of the time I actually just don't even see it. Funnily enough, and I'll probably get pie thrown at me, but it was in the Hop Thief 10 from Squires and with Galaxy in combo, and I could actually get the coconut in that. I could pretty much say it was mostly Galaxy poking its head up in the profile, except for that coconut note, which I could get. And so, I better cut that hop some slack. It definitely does what it says on the label. I just haven't been overly convinced.
I don't know if I want that. I'll say it if you don't want to say
it. Yeah. So if you want coconut in your beer, this is the hop for you.
Thinking about, talking about, you mentioned Two Hearted and Centennial, and I've seen a little bit of a slight resurgence in hops like Simcoe and Amarillo. People are kind of peppering them back in again.
Yep.
And there does seem to be a bit of a resurgence in West Coast IPAs. Just seen a couple of, random releases people dropping them in, and you're thinking, ooh, quite enjoying that. We've spoken about on the show lately, Dave, a lot. Well, we always speak about West Coast IPAs, but I do you think Eclipse has kind of a home in that space?
Oh, look, I certainly do, and further convinced by the Hop Nation IPA. Pioneer, convinced us enough to sink plants into the soil, so to speak. But I guess what I'd really like to see now, maybe the next step for me would be to see Eclipse in a bunch of different blends and iterations of IPA. Now, I mean, Dave, like you said, like if I had to put 12 IPAs on the market, you wouldn't have bought them. The thing is, now that it's out and about in the wild, hopefully organically we see it in a Simcoe and Amarillo mix. Hopefully we see it paired up with the 3 C's.
That's exactly how it would
be
really
excellent.
Shine and make a really outstanding hop profile. Yeah.
Yep. And so you take the tried and true Chinook Centennial Cascade and let Eclipse take the lead with the Mandarin on top. Like, bloody brilliant. I can see it. I can literally taste that beer.
Even just that little sweet citrus element that doesn't come from the malt. Like that's like no one wants any malt in their West Coast IPA. But that little bump of sweetness though is like a little accelerant. Yeah.
Yep. And so I mean, contributing meaningfully to balance, just like that. Yeah, a little hop mouthfeel, a little hop sweetness, and away you go in that sense of balancing out the whole beer. So. I would say that you're probably right about the resurgence of some of the, Amarillo I wouldn't say the 3Cs are dead in Australia. Like they are getting hammered in the US. Their acreage in the ground is just plummeting. But here in Australia, I think there's still a significant portion of Cascade Centennial, maybe Chinook as a very much a third cousin to that sort of thing. But definitely, I think Amarillo and Simcoe, for instance, were on the nose a bit here recently, and I think it's all about that constant urge to chart yourself a unique space next to your neighbour. But I think we're starting to understand that you just need to know what your flavour drivers are and just choose, make good choices, and you'll get a good beer, and that is what's going to set you apart from your neighbour, hopefully. So if you really understand what Amarillo is going to bring and what Simcoe is going to bring, like in that dark from Moo, if you want to highlight that pine and resin note, put some Simcoe hot side and just let that pininess bring that dark malt palate together, and liberally sprinkle your mandarin on top. But there's a role for that. There's a role for that hop in that beer. Absolutely.
Before we wrap up, anything else you wanted to add or plug? This has been one big plug for HPA. I feel like next time we get you on, we need to actually get in some tough questions.
Yeah, well, what I'd prefer to do is actually get some of those brewers involved in here to you just ask them the Dorothy Dixes and they'll just give the answers, and I didn't have to say it. It's just the truth, right? But as much as it's been an advertorial, it's actually I feel like it's got some authenticity to it, because there are some fascinating beers in that pack, and I didn't make them. I didn't know what they were going to turn out like, and to bring guys like yourself on a journey with that pack is for me, it's just that's mission complete. That is just that's a fantastic result.
I think appealing to guys like us is 85% of the journey, really, because we're not impressed by anything anymore.
Cynical and jaded.
Yeah.
It's part and parcel, I think. Yeah.
I think this might be the first Sunday Road beer I've had as well, the lager, and I'll check them out again.
It's been quite a common theme actually that people have been quite grateful for the mixed carton turning up in their breweries, because I never would have got to see Mr. Banks. I never would have got to drink a Sunday Road here in Tassie. Pop a carton out at the Moobrew Brewery, and the boys have not seen some of these breweries, and so it's pretty cool too to connect industry with industry. It's great.
So if people want to find more information, you said it's available to homebrewers. So you said you partnered with the homebrew supplier. Who was that?
Yep. So we've tried to reach out to the bricks and mortar shops through.
Put you on the spot here.
Me now. Yeah, it's getting late. I've been drinking soda water too to avoid exactly that situation. Maybe it's not the beer. Maybe it's me. Basically, what I reckon you could do is walk into a homebrew shop and ask for it by name. And they'll either have it or they'll sort you out. We've got 50 homebrew customers, direct shops ourselves, plus utilising the supply channel to cover off the other. I don't know what there are, another 200 or something in Australia. There should be. You should be able to get your hands on it. For the commercial guys out there, we've got stock. We've got enough stock up our sleeve to see us out to next year, available now. We've got open positions out of the forward contracts from 2021. So we're in a really awesome spot to back up the excitement around this. And if people have that light bulb moment when they're drinking a beer, like I have my best moments, you can back those ideas up with supply. So it's cool.
Excellent. Her website is hpa.com, is that right?
Hops.com.au.
Hops.com. I knew there was a trick in there.
Even more simple than hpa.com.au. Hops.com. And now I do. I'll be proven wrong, but I do believe that Beer Cartel has still got mixed packs up on the shop. So if this has got you salivating and you need to stock the fridge, get on and do it.
And I should say, in terms of full disclosure, you sent us 2 packs that we were drinking tonight.
That was for that one bloke reading that article from 2 years ago. So we're square. We are square.
All right. Just in terms, so no one thinks anything underhanded's happening. That's what's exchanged hands, but all opinions are always genuine, as people know. Dave and I.
Sometimes.
Dave, you're really undermining the plug here.
No, like we did talk about this as soon as we saw the social media posts. You had to I was ready to buy it. I was ready to buy it. And I might buy another one. So if you haven't had it, I'll give you a chance.
As soon as you said there was more packs available, Owen, Dave was like, I could see it in his face. He's like
tapping my mouse. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Got distracted. Good on you guys. Thanks very much for having me on. Thanks for your support, and it's nice for me to just play a little role in the beer community, and I thank you guys for the role that you guys play as well. And like Luke, we were talking about the mammoth effort with the IBA and whatnot. Good on you, and it doesn't go unnoticed, and it's really appreciated because hopefully things like this can keep our little niche community together, enjoying great beers and celebrating the most romantic ingredient in beer, which is hop.
Okay. Dave, where do people find you on the internet?
At MeldDave on Twitter. Send me an email, david@elevatime.com.
And you can get me at luke@elevatime.com, elevatime.com for all the podcasts and everything. Beer together to watch along on these streams every Monday. I've already locked in the next guest, which will be someone from Upflow to talk about the sports beer that we kind of were very confused about a couple of weeks ago. Dave, they got in touch. So we'll be chatting to them all about what a sports beer actually is. And I'm off to record a Hypothetical Institute podcast. So look up that in your podcast apps if you want some conspiracy gear.
Give me the teaser. Come on.
We'll be talking about the election, but we're also going to be talking about star slime. Slime just falls from the stars. Who knows where it comes from? Is it aliens? It's not. Spoiler.
I would like to know about how Trump got robbed, but I guess star slime is the new star.
We'll talk all about how Trump got robbed as well. For all your conspiracy needs. Thanks to everyone that joined us in the chat as well. Really appreciate it. And we'll chat soon.